hvězdička, anděl můj, kdo má pod červenou galánku, ten má pokojnou myšlenku. Ligutala za hvězdička, anděl můj. Ale já mám pomylavu, ligutala za hvězdička, anděl můj. Ale já mám pomylavu, ta trápí moju hlavu, ligutala za hvězdička. My music has really led me to everything that is good in my life. Music is kind of my lifeblood, I suppose, because it has led me to everything that I value, including my family, and it's given a purpose to my life in many ways and sustained me, and it fills my time as well, because I spent a lot of my time creating music and working with music, and it led me to my friendships, because all my friends, except perhaps my childhood friends who are not musicians, but everyone else is musicians, and therefore it has filled my life with people that I love and things that I love to do. So that's just on that level. But on another level, it also is importantly giving me the purpose in a way to express myself, because I am otherwise I don't think I would know how. So through music, because I'm a little bit of an introvert, and actually a lot of an introvert, so it's not so easy for me to just talk about things, but they come out in music easier than they do in another way. I was born in Prague, at what was then Czechoslovakia. I was a single child, and my dad was from Moravia, and my mom was from a Czech Jewish family that was, in the time of World War II, all sent to concentration camps. This I didn't really know or understand until I was an adult, really. And it was just something that my mother never talked about. And even the fact that I was Jewish was not known to me. I also didn't know what Jewish meant. I was only told that I was Jewish when I was about 9. And at that time, when my mom told me you were Jewish, I asked her, what is that? It was not something that was often discussed in Czechoslovakia at the time. Jews were very under the radar, not making much of a noise at all, I guess.
The Jewish community of the Czech Republic is one of the oldest in Europe. It has existed since the 10th century. Today in the Czech Republic, there are 180 Jewish quarters, 200 synagogues, and 320 cemeteries. The main Jewish cultural monuments are concentrated in Prague. Beginning in 1938, at the insistence of Adolf Hitler, the country then known as Czechoslovakia lost some of its territories and was later forced to accept the German protectorate. In 1941, the Nazis decided to deport Czech Jews to concentration camps, where most of them died. During the war, out of all of the 118,000 Jews who lived in the country, 80,000 were killed. Their names are written on the wall of one of the Prague synagogues.
Anyone who knows a bit about communism would know, you can never speak truth. You were always told as a child that whatever is spoken at home, you can never say outside of the house. And you're always a little bit scared. Who's listening? Who's your friend? It makes very introvert and very private people from citizens to live in a climate like that. So that was my growing up, and important part of my childhood was my inclusion into a musical theater, a very popular musical theater called Semaphore. When I first started singing, it was as a very little child actually, but that would be mostly popular songs from the radio, and later also folk music. My mother, or folk music at the time, just Czech. My mother was very fond of Czech culture of all kinds, especially music, but also literature and theater. And so she taught me lots of folk songs, and we sang them always together when we were moving around anywhere or cleaning the house or something like that. And I connected with the stories and the sentiments, especially if they were sad. The sad songs always made me cry, and I loved it. My mom and my mom was a very beautiful woman, as you can see. This was taken on our birthday. We have birthday on the same day. So it was always a great celebration, just her and I together. I miss her. Again with my mom. Here is me as a baby. With my mom, I never actually could imagine that one day she was not going to be in my life. I guess it's like that with people that are so important that you just cannot fathom that one day they may not be there. My parents divorced when I was 6, and so after that it was just her and I alone. And half the time we were friends, and only very little of the time we were mother and child. We were mostly like two friends. Many of these pictures actually my mom took. She liked taking pictures, and I did not always collaborate. So some of the pictures I look very upset. It's because she's telling me to smile, and I don't want to smile. So the result sometimes is a little strange. she was a very joyous and joyful person, despite the fact that her important years of her growing up were spent in a concentration camp, and she lost her entire extended family as well as a father, grandparents in the Holocaust. She was, as you can see, a really extremely happy person, and even though very, very deep, and there were many dark sides in her heart that she guarded for herself very deeply and would not reveal. But what you saw on the surface is exactly this. My mom, sort of like a free person and devil-may-care type of thing, and liked her a glass of Cinzano or martini, and we always had some very nice liqueurs in the house, and so on our birthday we would pour each other a nice glass of something, and then we would get slightly inebriated, and that was a lot of fun as well. So you can see that here, both of us happy together. This is my grandmother Hannah, who was very important to me as well, because that was really the only family I had and known, especially once my parents got divorced. And so my grandma played a big role in my life, and I loved her very, very much. And she was a fun person who really was so light, very, very light. And we always made fun of her because she would do everything with just one hand. In one hand she would hold a cigarette, and in the other she did everything else, whether it meant cooking or doing cleaning, whatever that was. She would be smoking all the time, despite of which she managed to live till I think 87. I don't know how that is possible. So with a concentration camp and smoking like a chimney her entire life, she was really a miracle of nature, I would say. So that was grandmother Hannah, who was known apparently as like a sickly little child. Go figure. So some very strong roots there. So grandma and I, our favorite activity was playing cards. So we would always play cards. And we were pretty equal, I think, partners in this, and very much enjoyed it. After I left Czechoslovakia, at the time it was Czechoslovakia, I went for a little while to Denmark. And I thought I was actually going to live in Denmark. And I started going to school, university there for a couple of years. And I made my living playing in a restaurant, playing music. But then I still had my ideal, my goal was to work as a working musician, and I found it very difficult in Denmark because it's a very small country with very homogeneous population, where person that could blend in, like I could blend in visually, but forever will have a Danish accent, is not good for a singer. So that was discouraging to me, and I decided that I would look elsewhere. So I went to United States. I explored a little bit of some of the most attractive places to me. And then I came to Canada, and where my mom had a friend who lived in Vancouver. And so I visited him and his family and stayed with them for a couple weeks. And I thought that that was like the most beautiful place I've ever seen, Vancouver. And the West Coast was incredible. There was everything I ever liked was there. The ocean, the mountains, the nature was incredible. And on top of that, everybody seems to have an accent of some kind. You take the subway in Toronto, and most of the people are clearly not of the same background as I am. And I think that that's so fantastic. So I like to think that we're in all this together, and the more we interact and the more things we can do together, the better. And luckily, in culture and in music, it's more possible than in many other spheres of lives. So I'm trying to really take full advantage of the fact that we're so together here. So in my typical band that I've had here the longest in Toronto would be people where each person is from a different cultural background. And I really like it because then the product that comes out from collaborations like this, from a band like this, is really unique, because it's not, just one thing, but it's all these different parts of the mosaic that create a really uniquely Canadian. In my mind, I see it as very Canadian picture, musical picture. The project Sounds of Canada, I think, is really a brilliant idea, because it puts together exactly what Canada is about, the different bits of the cultural mosaic that we are blessed with here in this country. And so I think it's really a beautiful idea to represent all these cultures in such a poignant way. I started in musical theater singing in Czech, but after I never did sing at all in Czech. I sang in all these other probably dozen languages, but not in Czech. Sometimes I would throw in like a Czech one song here and there just for fun, but it was not my interest, really. I have to admit that is true. But then something happened maybe 3 years ago. I was coming back to Czech Republic more and more and performing there more and more. I was performing there Jewish music. So I was singing in Czech Republic, in Yiddish, in Hebrew, but not in Czech. Once I had a project called Lullabies from Exile. And that's in 2014. It's a collaboration with a wonderful artist, Israeli, Iraqi, Jewish artist. After the program, people were coming up, talking to us, and more than once, somebody said, oh, the Czech songs were the best ones. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I said, okay, it's time I have to do something with my actual roots. I have this booklet, which is a collection of national songs. They call it national and folk songs. That was arranged by Jan Masaryk.
Jan Masaryk was a diplomat and statesman and the son of the first president of Czechoslovakia, Thomas Masaryk. Since childhood, Jan had dreamed of becoming a musician. In order to divert his son's mind from frivolous hobbies, his father sent him to live with relatives in the United States. There, in addition to working in a steel company, Jan worked as a pianist in cinemas, playing during silent film showings. During World War II, when Czechoslovakia was occupied by the Nazis, Jan Masaryk became the foreign minister of the government in exile. Many of his former colleagues remember that often, and after official meetings, he played the piano in the presence of politicians and diplomats. After the end of the war, he retained the post of Minister of Foreign Affairs, although he did not share the views of the new communist government. On March 10, 1948, Jan Masaryk fell from a window of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs building. He was either killed or committed suicide. The circumstances around his death remain a mystery to this day.
And this is a book that my mother gave me for a birthday in 1968 that was published then, even though it was first written and arranged in 1948. But the story there is a little bit complicated because Jan Masaryk, being the foreign minister of foreign affairs, but not a communist. So when communists were about to take over and then eventually took over in 1948, he was suddenly on the wrong side of history, in their eyes anyways. And so what he just created, which was an album of folk songs that he arranged in a very unique, special way, that was never published. And only in 1968, when there was new freedom in the country for 1 year, this was published. And that's when my mother bought it for me.
In 1968, the Czechoslovakian government tried to initiate liberal political and economic reforms. These few months in the country's history became known as the Prague Spring. This horrified the communist leaders in the other countries of the Soviet bloc, primarily in the USSR. And on the night of August 21, 1968, Soviet troops invaded Czechoslovakia under the pretext of fighting counter-revolution. The government buildings, the central station, the radio, and the newspapers were seized. Members of the liberal government were arrested and sent to Moscow. Czechoslovakia's armies received orders not to resist the invasion, but the people of Prague took to the streets. They built barricades, wrote anti-communist slogans, and threw Molotov cocktails at the invaders. More than 100 people died in the clashes. Some committed public acts of self-immolation in protest. The Prague Spring was brutally suppressed, and the communist dictatorship was established in the country for a long time.
And then, interestingly enough, the political situation changed again in Czechoslovakia, and this booklet again disappeared and was not available, but I already had it. And so when I finally left the country and spent the rest of my life outside Czechoslovakia, I've had this book with me ever since, and it was my source of Czech and Slovak folk songs. And so whenever I wanted to sing a Czech song, this is what I would use. So I was very familiar and very attached to the songs that were in this particular collection. And so, of course, when I'm planning to do something in Czech, this is the first thing that came to mind. So that was my first album in Czech. The somewhat sad, I guess, sad and happy side to this is that I managed to, I was recording the first 4 songs of this album just as my mother was literally on her deathbed. And so I took the first 4 rough recordings from the studio to her room where she was in Prague in her last days, and I played it for her on my computer. So she heard it, because she always wanted me to sing in Czech and to be more involved with the Czech culture, and I never did. So at least before she passed, she had that from me, and it felt extremely meaningful. This is what I carried with me into the recordings. I received an Independent Music Award in New York, so that's an international competition that takes place every year. And I won in one of the categories in there with a song from the album Masaryk.
Si zpiewać budem, a keď umriem, potom zpiewać budem, a tu ja si ešte zpiewać budem. I keď umriem, ležať budem, cup, tralala, tu si ja zpiewać budem,
The most important part of my life is my family, my husband, Ruben, with whom I've been married now for almost 30 years. So we are looking forward to an anniversary next year. Very exciting. We have 3 grown children, fantastic people. My eldest is daughter Hannah. Is in the black dress. Hannah is now 28, I think. Yes, if I got it right for everybody. Yes. Then there's my daughter Rachel on the left, who's now 25, and my son Ben, who is 24. My husband is not an artist, which is probably a very good thing. Though he likes music, he likes, unfortunately, a very different kind of music than what I like, so we don't agree on that. But he is very appreciative of music and the arts, so we enjoy that part of our lives together, and we travel quite a lot. And so it's a very good family life that I've been blessed with. I have so many ideas still that I want to do projects of creative projects that are still very different than anything I've ever done. Working with different people. And also I love collaborations, because that brings in somebody else's artistry, perspective, personality, understanding, And it makes me work on a different level, and trying to make it work together, it's just so exciting. So many of my projects lately have been in collaboration with other artists, and so far each one has been from a different corner of the world, really. And that seems to continue, actually, as my mother passed away 2 years ago, and I was going through her estate, and I found booklets of poems that were written by my grandmother in the concentration camp. Those are really incredible. I mean, some of it I think is really powerful, beautiful poetry that I wish I knew as a child when I had my grandmother there. I never thought that she was an artist in any way. I believe in growing your whole life. I'm not a young woman at all. In fact, I'm somewhere near the end probably now. I don't know, but artistically, I just don't see that at all ending. You know, I think I'll be writing and scribbling something probably till the end of my life. That's most likely.